Welcome to Iron Sights. This podcast candidly seeks to create opportunities and deliver impact by sharing the experiences and wisdom of successful entrepreneurs and thought leaders who unapologetically aim to win in health, fitness, business, and life. I'm your host, Scott Howell. Welcome to Old School Meets New School. Tradition meets innovation, and imperfection meets excellence. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Sweet, we're here. So Jackie made it down to the studio today to hang out with me, and I'm super excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
It's been a long time, actually, since we kind of sat down and just caught up. It seems it's either like business or I see you coming and going as a client, you know, in the gym. And by the way, congratulations on all the success that you've had there. I know it's been, you know, a little bit of a road for you. Maybe we can get into that sometime. But nice to be sitting down in a different format and just sort of connecting.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. I swear I thought about it. It's been almost 2 years since we've been able to talk.
I was just connecting with some people the other day and thinking the same thing, going, this is weird. Like, I literally had my doctor in here the other day, and I was like, dude, it's been, there's almost a year to the day since I've seen that guy. And the crazy part about it is that's what we do here every day. Like, that's part of, you know, Red Dot Fitness and, you know, in the fitness business side of what we do is the connection that we have with our people and that we're seeing. It was the hardest thing to not see people. So it is so good to have you here and, you know, be able to connect to a human face to face.
Yeah, excited. You know, when you asked me to come chat with you, part of the intrigue was I have no idea what some of, you know, this is all about. I feel really interested to see how this is going to work with Red Dot and how the connection will be, and I want to hear more.
Well, I'm excited about the connection. I think, you know, the Iron Sights podcast for me is a bit of a pet project. It's a little bit of a selfish personal thing, but it's also, you know, on the professional side of things, it was important for me. And I think from a personal side, it was exactly what I just said there. It was about being able to reconnect with people. And I've had so many amazing, you know, experiences in my career and my life. And, you know, and some of it's about sharing that, but some of it is about creating more. Yeah. And having those things again. And on the professional side, you know, a lot of what my aim is here with the podcast is to share with others and have people that are maybe even a little obscure in the world, you know, that we know now, which is all public and all on social media and a little obnoxious, you know, at times, most of the time, quite frankly, in my opinion. But these are people that have influenced me, and they've influenced my business and helped me be successful, and other people that I've worked with be successful over a very long period of time, and influenced me in health, influenced me in my personal health, in my business health, in my personal fitness, professionally, you know, in the things that we do in terms of providing fitness as a company, fitness and health to other people, the wealth factor, and, you know, being successful from a financial position and being not successful from a financial perspective, and some great minds. And then, but again, going back, I think it's about the relationships and sharing those relationships, because I think it's selfish to keep them to yourself. And I think the other part about it is they have so much to bring to the table, and I have been able to sort of communicate their message through me. I thought this was a great opportunity for people that wouldn't have a platform otherwise to kind of come in and talk about themselves, right? And feel good about doing that, but also provide these like nuggets of wisdom and knowledge and inspiration, maybe for some, because I know it's been inspirational for me, so they can walk away from it and have some actionable items to really impact their life, and whether that's, you know, in health, wealth, fitness, business. If you're a human out there that's just trying to win, right, and or trying to get better, the people that I know have helped me do that. So I really just wanted to share.
Yeah, well, you've helped me do that. So let's talk about you and kind of, you know, our first meeting and kind of how I got to know you. And I think it helps, you know, explain why I keep coming back, and now at this point have still been your friend and your client. So why don't you tell, you know, a little bit about where you came from? How did, you know, you get all the knowledge you have?
So it's a journey, right? It's always a journey. And I think in starting it out, if you go, back like most coaches, and that's where I kind of started in the business. We have a story about, we have a testimony. There was something that we were involved in that drove us this direction. And for a lot of us, it could be for some coaches, it may be something different, like maybe it was cheerleading or dance or, or some type of, organized sport or something that they were in. For me, I was always playing sports as a kid, and my parents needed me to do that to keep me busy and somewhat out of trouble and keep me moving. It was always important for me to be doing something. So, I grew up like a lot of kids do. There's soccer and there was baseball and there was stuff and I always really enjoyed that. And there was a good balance there too. My parents were fantastic. I'm one of the luckiest dudes in the world that way. I've got a great family. My mom and family of two, or family of four. I've got a brother that's 5 years younger than I am, and we're super tight. And my mom and dad are still together after 50 years of marriage.
Oh.
Yeah, they were a super great example to me. They supported me in everything I did. So, as I went through sports, I learned that, you and again, that balance came with, hey, there was church, there was Boy Scouts, there was school, there's being a student, there was family, there were connections to other people and friends, and all of those things were important. But what I learned early on was when you start something and you commit to it, you do it. And it's not going to be it's not going to be an easy road all the time. You have to fight. You got to work hard. And so as I got into school and into, I got older on, I started to excel a little bit. I think not because I was a great athlete or I was a great, the smartest kid in the room or in the class, but because I worked hard and what drove me to do that was, how I'd been brought up, and that I didn't want to embarrass, or let down my folks. And so that was the impetus for doing well, right? And then, so as I got, inevitably you go through school, you play sports. There was football. I was really into football. I was really into wrestling and weightlifting and all that stuff. And so I had a purpose, right? You work out, you be the big strong guy, on the field or the mat or whatever else, and there's a connection there. And then I, went to school, got into college, and I tried my path in a couple different ways. Originally, I wanted to go in law enforcement.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah. It's actually, I look back and I go, maybe I should have gone in law enforcement. I decided not to go into the military. It's actually one of the bigger regrets in my life. People ask about the red dot. What's that about? Where does that all come from? We can talk about that. But, I didn't go into the military. It was one of my bigger regrets. I really have, high regard for, service members and veterans and so forth. My dad went that route. But again, going through college, football ended for me sort of abruptly, and it was a choice that I made, and I had kind of lost myself and lost my direction. Again, fitness was a big part of my life for a long, long time as it related to sport. Now the sport was over. So spending, 3 hours a day in the gym, and not having anything to put it towards, was a weird thing for me. But I knew I needed it, and I kept doing it.
Did it end abruptly because of an injury or because? No,
it's because of an attitude problem and a chip on my shoulder. So I'd gone to school, and so I'd actually gone to San Jose State, which is the local school right out of high school. I thought I should have got a little bit more attention than I did to go play. I'd actually had some offers to go play at some other schools, and I decided not to. I wanted to kind of stay close to family and whatnot. Maybe made a poor decision there, but the bottom line was it was my decision. I owned it, and I went, and I went through this period where I felt like it wasn't that I was having a fight for position. I didn't have a problem with that. I just didn't think the whole situation was handled very well, in that I was I got kind of left on the sideline literally and figuratively. That being said, there wasn't a lot of direction. I needed direction. I'd come from a structured program where I was like, hey, here's what you do, here's how you do it. And for the first time in my life, I was kind of left to figure it out on my own. And specifically, it wasn't like the football. It was the school. It was getting the classes. It was where to be at what time.
It's time to grow up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're thrust into like, dude, it's time to be a man. So, but at the same time, when I got into it, I started to recognize the politics that were going on, and I didn't know how to deal with that. I did not have the emotional maturity to deal with it, and I didn't have the awareness of how to kind of figure it out. So, and at the same time, I got into kind of a horrific car accident, which changed, there was some pretty serious orthopedic issues that came out of that, and I kind of had to fight my way out of it. Now, football I hadn't quit at that point. I was involved, but it had been taken away from me. And that was the first time, you have this realization, like, now you can't do it. Even if you wanted to do it, you need to change your attitude. So, I
just can't imagine you with a bad attitude at this point. This is just...
Yeah. I think if you talk to my mom, I had to go back to her at some point in my early 20s and sort of apologize to her for being a total asshole. Yeah. I mean, I there wasn't a sense of entitlement. It was more of, I was short-tempered. I probably got that from the old man. I know my brother, only being 5 years younger than I am, he didn't see the same dad that I saw. I think I wore my dad out, and I trained him a little bit by the time my little brother came along. So, but the point of that is I was hot-tempered, very short, and I want it now, kind of thing. But circling back, in trying to get sort of to the career path, I had kind of suffered physically, and that's the first time in my life that I'd had something taken away from me. Now, that's not to say that I'd been in the emergency room. I was like on a first name basis with the emergency room staff from the time I was about 12 to 17 years old. Like, I was in there constantly. Broken bones, sprains, dislocations.
You don't work on those apologies to your mom still.
Well, here's the irony of that. My mom worked in the ICU at the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So, your
kid's here again.
So we'd have them call ahead and say, hey, can you call down Karen from the ICU and tell them to meet Scott in the emergency room? And so, but this was serious, and it laid me up. I mean, I was hospitalized, and I came out the other end, and the first question I asked the doctor, the orthopedic surgeon, was, am I going to be able to play football again? And he said, I don't think so. There was a pretty horrific ankle deal that was going on there. It was pretty nasty. And he goes, I'm not quite sure. I really don't know, but let's not think about that now. Let's think about getting you better. So I went through this period of having to, learn how to take care of myself in a different kind of way. And I came out the other side with kind of a new fire and a little bit of a different attitude. And at that point, I knew I was sort of in the wrong environment at the state school. So I transferred over to a junior college, and I ended up playing 2 seasons of football there, and I excelled, and I had a really good time. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to continue to do. And I learned what I wanted to do sort of from an educational perspective. I wanted to study business. And I fell in love with Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, which was right down the road, and I transferred down there to play. And I'd been dealing with a coach there who was the defensive coordinator, and had some conversations. And I knew I was going to have to walk. I wasn't going to get a scholarship or anything, but I knew I wanted to go down there. And I got down there. As soon as I got down there, the head coach had been picked up by an NFL team, and when he left, then the coaching staff kind of got dismantled. Yeah. And the guy that I'd been dealing with and I'd built this relationship with and to get myself in there, he ironically came into San Jose State. Oh. So here I am, I'm left again, kind of like on my own.
Yep,
and
figure it out.
Yeah, and so what am I going to do? And it was at that point that I made a choice, like, hey, I'm far enough along down this deal where is this what I want to do, or do I want to focus on college and kind of getting through?
Yeah.
And then also enjoying the college experience and being with, meeting new friends, and first time on my own, and kind of doing all that stuff. Because previously I'd been living at home still for that year and a half, 2 years. And it was at that point where football stopped, and I was now in the gym and trying to figure myself out. So then, at that point in time, and so we're going back in time now. So this is going to be like circa 1995, 6.
Yep.
If you're in the gym, right? It was bodybuilding. Right? And that's what you did, or you were just kind of a meathead period and you're just in there moving around weights. And there was a lot of both of that, of each of those things. And I friended those types of people because I was one of those bigger, stronger guys that was in the gym all the time. And I was a younger guy, but I wanted to work out with these guys. I wanted to kind of hang around them. And I kind of got bitten by the bug a little bit because now I found sort of a purpose in a community.
Yep.
And that was when I started first kind of learning about the gym and having a community. I always had a membership at a gym, but like never had like...
These were big box gyms.
Actually, no. This is a small town. It wasn't a big box gym at all. It had been previously a Gold's Gym.
Oh. That's why the meatheads were there.
It's exactly what you would expect a Gold's Gym to look like back in the late 90s. But it taught me a lot, and I started to kind of learn what that environment was like, how it operated. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, this bodybuilding thing looks kind of cool. I mean, I don't know what else to do. So, let me give that a shot. And at this point, you start to learn, like, there's a lot of things that go into bodybuilding outside of just showing up to the gym every day. Yep. And, there was this nutrition aspect that I knew nothing about, and I could only get so much information from reading, Muscle and Fiction magazine and, Flex and, all these things.
Yeah.
The owner of the gym had been a IFBB pro, and I knew this lady had all the knowledge, and I wanted it. And so I'd gone to her one day, and I'd had somewhat of a relationship with her because I was in there all the time.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I need some help with nutrition. Can you help me? And so she sat me down and she talked to me a little bit. And I said, yeah, I want that. This is what I want. I was really intrigued. Super smart. She looked the part. She acted the part. She had my full attention and my full respect. I was just enamored by her. And she says, yeah, well, this is how much it costs. And I went, fuck, I'm a starving student right now. I don't have that kind of money. And then it dawned on me, like, for a second, but not for very long. Wow, you can make money doing this. Mm-hmm. Like, I said, I don't have any money. Like, but I'll do whatever I need to do. This is about how much I can afford. And
she was going to build a nutrition.
She was going to tell me everything. I told her what I wanted to do. I said, listen, I want to step on stage and I want to look like that guy and I want to compete. And, she wasn't fully disclosing all of the reality of that. And I learned that later. But, nutrition was this thing. And she said, yeah, I can help you with that. And I said, well, I can't afford all that. What can you do? She said, I'll tell you what, because she had seen me working out in there and then I was dedicated to her. She's like, you meet me every day at 4:30 a.m. You'll be my training partner because I need one. And I'll help you. I said, sign me up. So I'll see you tomorrow at 4:30. 4:30
a.m. for a college kid.
Yeah, so this is also a college kid that during the time made his mom super proud. She said, hey, man, you're going to go away to school. You're going to live on your own. You're going to do this, and here's the expectations. And one of those things is going to be, excuse me, you're going to get a job. And I'd always had a job, so that wasn't a problem for me. But, 20 years old, just turning 21, where'd I go? Yeah. Straight to the bar, right? So I had already been working as a bouncer at a local nightclub.
OMG.
Yeah, which was I can
see this now.
So I'm closing the bar at 2 a.m. and going to the gym at 4:30 a.m. And so I lived that lifestyle for a while. So it was, and I was trying to go to school. Well,
something's gonna give.
Something's got to give. So anyway, long story short, it was an eye-opening experience for me in a lot of different levels. I was learning a ton about the sport of bodybuilding, training programs. There's a very old school sort of mentality, and that was very valuable for me to pick up. There was also, the commitment and the discipline and the attitude and the focus that it took, and it taught me those things at a different level. But it also taught me balance, and it taught me, what was important. And early on, I was, like I said, while I was at the party, so to speak, as a as a bouncer working at the club, I wasn't partying. And if there might have been one night a week where I was doing that because I didn't have the bandwidth to do it. I couldn't do it. And it wasn't serving my lifestyle. So, and what I wanted. And anyway, as that went on, ultimately this lady came to me, she said, you're pretty good at this. And, I think you should look into becoming a coach. And it never dawned on me. I mean, I'd gone back, like she made it apparent that I could make some money doing that, right from the get-go. And right now, all I was trading was, my time with her. I was getting a really great deal. I was getting an education. I was getting an awesome training partner, and I was getting where I wanted from a goals perspective. But she said, I think you should do this, and I'll support you to do it. And I went, okay, well, what does that even mean? I don't even know what that looks like. Yeah. And so she walked me through the process and helped me get my first certification, which actually was in nutrition. And then back then, nutrition certifications were much different than they are now. They were typically attached to like a program where you learned how to sell products and things like that. So, that was a cool experience, actually. I got sent down I was in Venice Beach, and that's where the nutrition coaching program was, and it was right next door to Gold's Gym.
Yeah.
The Gold's Gym.
The beachfront.
Yeah. The mecca of bodybuilding. So I was super inspired. I was going in and was at this class 8 hours a day, and then I would walk in and to Gold's Gym and train and just be, you think you're something until you walk into this place, and you're just like, and it's in a lot of different levels. It's a circus. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I came back and then immediately then I started to study for, a personal training certification. And then I became like fascinated by how you could obtain education outside of the institution of education, that being the university. So I had been going to Cal Poly, and I'd been studying, and I recognized pretty fast that like, I could get through this business thing, but I was really passionate about the whole health and wellness thing. Mm-hmm. And so then I ended up, kind of going, well, I think I want to make a run at this fitness business, and what's the pathway to do that? And I just at that time thought, well, makes sense, you're going to get a degree in it, and then at the end that's going to help you get a better job, and you're going to make more money. And because at the time, that's what you think, right? You go to college, get a job, make money, buy a house, get married, have kids. That's just what you do. That's still where my mindset was in my early 20s. And so I switched to be a nutrition major. And at this point, I had to give up the club or the nightclub scene, or whatever. And that was fine for me to do. And I was starting to make a little bit of money, but not a lot. And I was still a student. So there was this balance going on. And so as I was going to school for dietetics, I learned very fast that the information that was being provided and the people that were providing were very old school. Mm-hmm. And it was very old information, outdated information. And it frustrated me, but not to the extent that I was like, I got to get out of this. This is the wrong path for me. It was more, it drove me to sit in the front of the class and raise my hand and ask questions. But that asking questions turned into, there was a resistance to the questions that I was asking. I was hearing information that didn't line up with what I was seeing in reality. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to help people. My clients are asking me certain questions, and we're still looking at the food guide pyramid, right? And, what all kinds of stuff, and I won't even go down that path, but this is how we're telling people they should be eating. And I'm looking at it going, but this is making people sick. They're not able to lose weight. They're overweight. They feel like shit. And my personal experience had been little at this point, right, as a young guy, but I'd been around very, experienced people in the gym and asking them questions, and it's not jiving, and I'm trying to figure this out. Meanwhile, I'm taking physiology. I'm having to kind of start over my education because there was nothing in business that was lining up. Yeah. There's nothing lining up. So the part of that was, I guess the bigger part of that is I was getting frustrated, and I was starting to feel like I was going down a path that wasn't going to serve me. And I had to make some decisions, and the decision was, I'm seeing there's other ways to obtain knowledge, and it's through smart people. And those people aren't necessarily in
smart, relevant people.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, those people aren't necessarily at university.
Yeah.
They're necessarily in college. Yeah. At least not for what I was looking at doing in the environment I was looking to do it in.
Yeah.
I was trying to be specialized to some extent. I didn't want to be a pro bodybuilder. I figured that out pretty fast. That wasn't going to be my path. Started learning about the drugs that were involved, the lifestyle, the long-term lifestyle involved, and it was just a place I just didn't want to be. But I still wanted to stay, in the fitness industry, and I was watching people make good money, right? And seeing, how you could develop your career or yourself and your career there. And I wanted that, and I decided that continuing through school wasn't going to be the path for me.
Through that school.
So I decided to jump right in. And so pretty soon I was coaching and I had a bunch of clients. Then I had a club and I had a bunch of trainers, right? And they had a bunch of clients, and that's where it started.
Yeah. How did you find the connection with clients?
At that point, it was
they just
weird.
Hire you because of the way you look?
Totally. I mean, so here's back in or it was just, because I could sell, and so if you talk to a lot of coaches and where they started, there's a couple different ways, back then. So again, we're looking at late 90s here. Personal training was very obscure. And what I mean by that is, if you walked into your local gym, most of the trainers there or most of the coaches there were one of two things. You were either an aerobics instructor, right, who was teaching a step class, or at the time, group cycling was just coming out, right? Or you were a bodybuilder, right? The only other, and obviously those are two very, very different things from what the average gym goer even today, wants to look, be, or be influenced by. In a lot of cases, not in every case. If you get on Instagram, you might think differently, but the point being is you were either doing that or you were a strength and conditioning coach. And the strength and conditioning coach was the person that you saw in the facility at the university who had all the teams. If you were on the football team, the wrestling team, the volleyball team, whatever, you saw the strength and conditioning coach. And it's dominated by males, particularly at that point. But this was the guy that was just sweating and spitting and yelling all the time. The guy that sounded like he had gravel in his voice. And my point of that is you're trying to figure out who you're supposed to be. You're trying to figure out your identity as a young coach. And outside of the influence that I'd had in the coaching, I wasn't going to be like this lady that I'd been working with, and I wasn't going to be like some of the other old school guys that were in there. It was really just about kind of figuring it out. But yeah, I mean, there would be a wall in the gym with all the pictures and the bios of the coaches.
And they just pick one.
They pick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how it would work.
Yeah.
So, or some new person would come into the gym, right? They'd sign up, and they'd sign up for a membership, and of course, with every new membership comes a free personal training session or a number of free personal training sessions in which the trainer was expected to. Basically, in any trainer that's grown up in the big box or even in this type of environment back then, I hope things to some extent have changed.
No, I feel like they haven't.
Yeah.
Just in case I feel like there are some places that still have that model.
Yeah, where you go. So the model is this, right? I mean, they give you a trainer. Your trainer shows up, and then they show you every piece of fucking equipment in the gym, right? And you're expected to remember all of that, and then they show you how the cardio equipment works, and they show you where to put your stuff in the locker, and you're basically just giving them the tour of all the equipment, and then at the end, the gym management expects you to this person that's just now bought a membership that costs them $19 a month or $29 a month to sell them a $2,000 training package. So you're hitting them over the head with this sales, deal at the end. And that's what it was. Yeah. And so that's how I got, that's essentially what I was been thrown into. But how did I make the connection? I figured out real fast that I was a salesperson first and a coach second in that. And so I needed to learn, and I was already okay with having conversations with people. I wasn't afraid to do that, but I needed to learn to have those conversations real fast at a different level.
Yeah, I'm curious, how long did you stay in that kind of boutique-y gym environment, and then who pulled you out of that? Yeah,
so it's interesting. So I was there I sort of accelerated things pretty fast for myself from a success perspective. And success at the time was measured by how many clients do you have, right? How much money are you making for the gym?
How many did you have?
Right? So I quickly went from like 1 to 5 to 10 to 15 to 20. And pretty soon when you hit the, you know, that 20, 25 client number, that's a lot of work. I mean, assuming you train each person maybe 2 times a week on average, that's 50 hours a week, right?
And these are all kinds of people?
All kinds of people, right? And again, going back to what you said, you know, at 23, 24 years old, you know, at this point I'm being, you know, I was a young guy, I had all different color hair at this point. Like it was, it's been like, clothes were way too freaking tight, you know, like, there was, you know, I was out in the beach trying to be tan all the time or whatever. I was everything that the poor lady that yeah, it was that.
Yeah.
It was bad. So yeah, so some of it was by, well, I want to train with that guy because I want to look with him.
Totally.
And then some of it was just by, well, you just got to sign that because you're the top, you know, salesperson in the gym. And so we need that guy to take all those appointments. And by default, you get clients. So that's, and certainly there were some referrals and things that came, but I was training all different types of people. Okay. But I was probably discouraging all types of people too, because, you know, I thought I knew. You know, what you want to do as a new trainer who's now obtained all this knowledge is give all your knowledge to all these different people. And you know, in hindsight, it's the worst thing you could do. Yeah,
I mean, a person like me wouldn't want to know anything about bodybuilding at all.
Right.
The opposite.
Why would you? Yeah. Right? Yeah. I don't want to look like you. Mm-mm. Right? And, you know, and that was the joke, is like, of course you're not going to look like me. You're not willing to put in the work. You're definitely not going to eat like I do. Like, it's not like you're going to lift a weight and wake up tomorrow jacked. I mean, come on, lady. Right? And there was that kind of an attitude too, like, that's dumb. Like, you know, you wouldn't say that to her, but inside you're thinking that. So you're putting on the show, right? And that a lot of personal training at the beginning is doing that, I think, for a lot of coaches. And I went through that. So I did all that. And and trying to make connections was the thing that took some time. It wasn't that I couldn't, you know, relate to somebody. They couldn't relate to me because I could not get inside their head, you know, to understand what it is that really drove them. You just kind of assume everybody wants to lose weight, tone up, and you're not digging into the real emotions or the why that they're there and what drove them to finally make the decision to kind of get fit.
Yeah. When you left there, though, you definitely went more into the business, right?
Yeah, so from there, I was successful there, and kind of I ran my time out there, and I probably, you know, and again, I probably made some bad decisions. You know, there's always and here's the you know, the disclose. Every coach that's ever worked for any other gym gets to a point where they go, well, I have all these clients, right? They're paying me this much money, right? And the gym pays me this much less money. Wait a minute, like, I could do this. Mm-hmm. Like, this is easy. Like, these are my clients. This is my business. Like, I'm doing all the work here. And so there's this temptation to, you know, train people under the table, or maybe be a little dishonest about, you know, how many sessions you trained. And, you know, every coach has looked at their paycheck, looked at the system, and tried to figure out a way to manipulate the system. And once your head starts going there, that's a bad place to be. Yep. And again, I was there, and I started going down that path and thinking, look, there's got to be something better for me. Like, I could do this, I could be better at this. And as a result, there was another gym in town, and I knew there was the manager there who knew me and what I was capable of, and he sold me a bag of shit, and I went over there and I ate it up.
This is a big box.
It's not. So it's in a smaller place. So it's not really, I mean, compared to today's big boxes, there was no 24-hour fitness. There was no, you know, Bally. There was no LA Fitness in San Luis Obispo. It was still fairly small. Now you go down there, it's a little bit more commercialized, but at the time it was pretty small town still. Anyway, so I went into this over to this other gym and sort of made the head trainer right away. Right. And so I had this and I was going to get paid more money, which was the draw. Like, and I'm going to pay you this much more money. I'm in. Right. So, you know, again, so there was this building process, and I had the opportunity to walk into a place that was selling no personal training and really build the business from what I'd learned from this other place. And the person that had hired me in had actually worked for 24 Hour Fitness. Now, I think they're trying to do the same thing, but this is back in the day when a guy by the name of Mark Mastroff was running the company, and Mark is really the sort of the grandfather of, you know, the current fitness environment here, at least in the United States, particularly from the operational model sense. This dude was sharp that took me on, and he really did teach me the back end business that I didn't know and that I was missing, and he taught me to respect process, structure, framework, and from a personal training perspective, a different method to obtaining a client. Now, the structure was very, very similar. You're taking people through equipment, but it was about the conversation. It was about making the connection. It was about, in the sales business, it's about testing the buying temperature with trial closes. It's about getting to the root of why somebody's in there, that underlying motivation, things that I hadn't heard before. Nobody had taught me any of that. I'd sort of kind of figured it out on my own, but he was making sense of it for me and putting it together. And again, accelerated results. And with that, he taught me how to sell personal training from the 22-year-old like me, right, to the 72-year-old who was afraid of me, and I got really good at it. Very, very, very good at it. And
there has to be a part of it that just happens naturally, though. I mean, did he teach you sales techniques, and they were actually
the sales techniques were spot on, and he taught me that stuff. But anybody that's ever successful in this business will tell you, you can teach them all the things in the world, but there are some I think some innate things that you have to have. And I think it goes back to what I was learning before, or what I learned before, which is you got to work hard, and you have to be really passionate about it. And what I learned is you got to put your attitudes and what you think might be the right thing to do aside sometimes to listen to other people and just kind of let things marinate and come together. And so, yeah, I wanted to help people. And that's what it really came down to. I was passionate. Like, I wanted to help people. I enjoyed people coming up to me in the gym at the time, because it gets really annoying when you become a gym owner. So all you people out there that might be listening that know you're gym owners and, you know, they have their headphones on and trying to work out in their gym, leave them alone. Then there's time and a place. But there was this I guess this skill acquisition that I was getting, but it was being put on top of work ethic, right? Ability to suffer, like, you know, and not be good at something and come out the other side. Take the wins, also take the losses, and learn from each of those things. But I think the innate want or drive to want to help somebody really be better, and then enjoying seeing them do that, and learning that sometimes the result that they get and what they share with you is better than the paycheck. That was what was really driving me. And I'm like,
that's what has to kick in eventually.
Yeah, because, you know, I didn't know it then, right? But I didn't know it then, but this is a labor of love, right? Personal training is just a labor of love. Trainers, if you ask them, you know, why do you want to be a personal trainer, or why do you want to be a coach? The top reason is not to make money, right? That's usually like fourth or fifth on the list. It's like, I really like helping people. I went through this challenge in my life, and I was helped by other people, and I want to share that experience with other people. And I had been through some of those things, right? And I'd also, you know, and I'd been supported along the way, and I knew what it felt like to be supported. And sometimes that's all these people needed. Yeah. And I could do that. It was easy for me. I felt passionate about it. I was charged up to get out of bed every day and go do that. And I think what I was saying is, I loved when people came up and say, hey, Scott, you know, I see you're doing this, and, you know, you're having some, you know, this looks great, or, you know, whatever, I saw you doing this with other client. Could you maybe help me or give me some tips? At the time, I was like, yeah, let's talk about it. Like, I was just so passionate about it. And so, yeah, that was natural. I don't think you can coach or teach that. It's just, you either have it or you don't. So,
yeah, at some point, I think that clearly the business aspect became important to you as well.
Yeah, so I was being taught these skills, and I was watching the back end. So I'd never seen a P&L in my life, right? So I didn't even know what that was. Yeah. So I was like, well, let me share this profit and loss statement with you. Profit and loss statement. Okay, what's that? I just knew how much I made and how much the the club was writing in personal training revenue and so forth. So we laid it out for him, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And while I'm not a math guy by any means, like I understand numbers, and I started to really, really enjoy picking through the P&L, like, man, we can save a little bit of money here by doing this, and we can make a little bit more. Man, if we just did 3 more units here, that would mean this over time. And I got to get really into it. And then I was introduced to like a bonus system, you know, like, well, the reason I'm sharing this with you, Scott, is because, you know, right now we started out at $2,000 a month of personal training sessions, and now we've reached 15, you know, whatever. And if we get to 20, we're going to be in a position to pay a bonus potential to you of X dollars. So that means, you know, if you hit this, you get this extra reward. And I was like, I love that idea.
Let's do it.
You just challenged me, number one, and everything's a competition, right? So, and he knew that. He was a smart guy. He's like, okay, so here's what it is. I go, well, how much can I make? You know, and he's like, well, we're going to pay you an extra $250 if you write $20,000 in personal training. You know, I was an idiot. I was like, that's awesome. $250? Like, that's going to pay my car payment.
For sure.
Right? For, you know, doing all this work.
Tanning bill right there.
Right, totally, right? Like, it's my chicken and broccoli bill for a week, right? Like, because that's all I was eating, chicken, broccoli, and rice at the time. So I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Let's do this. So I started to learn about that, and he's like, hey, but there's more. If you write a little bit more, we're gonna do what we call a sliding scale. So if you write 105%, I'm gonna pay you 105% of that. So you're gonna make like $265 or whatever that works out to. Again, not a math guy. I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I actually get paid more if I do more. This makes sense. Like, so I do the work, then I get paid. Yeah, that's how it works. Great. Get back to work. Great. And so I started to learn these things, and that I could, my work was being rewarded, right? And albeit it wasn't a lot of money, I figured that out pretty fast. I'm like, hold on, now I'm writing 40 G's, you know, a month for this club. And I feel like that trainer again, who was, you know, while you're paying me more than I was working at the last place, I just took this thing up $35,000 a month. Somebody's getting fucking paid here, and it's not me, right? Like,
so extra $65. What are you talking about?
So hold on a second. So again, aspirationally, you're starting to go, I can do this. I could run a club. Like, I could be an owner of a club. I'm starting to understand this a bit naive, but also understanding the concepts at 23, 24 years old or whatever it was. So I was starting to get it. Yeah. And so I was inspired to kind of like, what else is out there?
Yeah. Eventually you left to go way big style though. Yeah.
So at the time, my girlfriend at the time, who later became my wife, had been from the Central Valley, and she had been finishing school, so she was getting an undergraduate degree. She sort of got a late start in school. She was an athlete and was graduating, and we had to make some decisions, like, well, what was going to happen? And so at that point, I was like, okay, well, I need to make some career decisions here. Are we going to stay here? And everybody wants to stay. Anybody that goes to school in San Luis Obispo doesn't want to leave. And
cost of living changes your mind real quick.
Well, I mean, you got the beach, you got the outside, and we were riding bikes, we were surfing, we were doing all kinds of stuff. It was really great. We had a nice little lifestyle there, and I was making enough money to live and be comfortable. But the reality is I wanted more. And the bigger reality was okay, I have this relationship with this person, and they want to take their career this way. They want to enter into their career now. And this person was a little older than me, and way fucking more mature than I was at that point. It was like, look, we got to make some decisions here. And I'm not sure it's going to happen in this town. It's a very small town. There's very little opportunity here. So going back to the Central Valley part, we can move to the Central Valley, and I have some opportunity there, and there could be some for you there too. Now, I had already been to the two places. I'd burned my bridges in the first place, right? The first gym. I was in the second place, and I was feeling like I was reaching a ceiling. And I really knew the reality of that, because the next step for me would have been, nearly impossible, because the guy that was above the guy that was in front of me was an owner. Yeah. So I kind of looked into it. I said, well, I wonder what's going on in the Central Valley. Well, at the time, the fitness business was booming, and personal training was just kind of starting to take off. It was starting to be a thing, and there was a company, and at the time it was a Fortune 500 company. It was called Bally Total Fitness, and they're kind of sort of no longer around. And I was there for all of the highest times and the lowest times in that company, but I looked into it, and they had just acquisitioned 5 clubs over in the Fresno area.
Yep.
And I didn't know anything about Fresno except that I'd traveled over there. I knew it was freaking hot in the summertime, and it was much different than where I lived. But, I looked at it, and I put together my resume. I may have photocopied some confidential company documents about some of the things that I had done, right? And to show, and put it in an application to be a coach and just to be a trainer. And the idea was, well, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to build my business just like I know how to do it. And then 6 months later, I'm going to leave and open my own business, which is what I wanted to do, because it's totally easier to do that over there than it is where I am. And, I got this. Like, this is simple, right? Build clients, develop a P&L, you got profits, or you got expenses and revenues, and this is going to be fine. But I knew rent was cheap over there, and it was going to be a potential opportunity. It wouldn't be forever, but it would be for a little while. So I put in my application as a coach, and I get a call. And the call was basically, hey, listen, you got a lot more experience than most of our managers do here. Would you be interested in interviewing to be a manager in one of our clubs? How much does that pay?
Yeah, all that matters at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
So I told him, and I said, fuck yeah, I'll be over. When do you want me over? So I made the drive over, interviewed, and then again, going back to the financial documents, I produced some stuff and to validate what I had said I had done and whatever. And they're like, well, we're going to give you one of our biggest clubs here, and you're going to have X amount of trainers, and you're going to have some opportunity. And that's how the next step for me. So I sort of leveled up, packed up all our stuff, moved over, and started working for Ballet Total Fitness as at the time it was called an operations manager, which really meant, for me, I was only interested in really the fitness end of things, but I was also intrigued because they didn't have just personal training managers then. Personal training wasn't really a business then. It hadn't really been developed. There was a company that was doing a good job with it. 24 Hour was starting to figure it out. And there was one other company that was blowing it up nationally. And for all those old people out there in the business, they'll remember Crunch was killing it. And that's sort of another part of the story, but it was kind of obscure. Again, like, it was just starting to kind of come on. People were starting to join gyms. It was becoming mainstream, and the personal training was an opportunity.
Yeah, and in the Central Valley, which is where I grew up, people work out. People were going to the gym. I mean, it was part of an everyday, and these huge, beautiful gyms were built everywhere.
You're absolutely right. It was impressive. So when I walked over there, again, they just acquisitioned these gyms from a guy by the name of George Brown, who's still in the game.
Yes, my sister actually worked for him for 5 years as a front desk person.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people have, George was sort of a pioneer and was doing a lot of things, in the Central Valley. He's really smart. He kind of led the way, and like, I want to know where the development is, right? And I'm going to buy property there. And I'm going to buy that property, and then as it begins to be developed, then he'd build his gym, and then he'd do it again and again and again.
They are beautiful.
They're beautiful. Yeah. So to give some perspective, the gym I had been working at was probably like maybe 3,000 or 4,000 square feet, both of them. Those are the big size.
Yeah.
This MFer was 40,000 square feet. It had actually had racquetball courts in it at one point, but they blew the walls out because like, this is a waste of space. Let's put equipment in it and pump more people in the thing. Massive like aerobics or group exercise rooms, spinning studios, 4 or 5 different complete lines of equipment. And at the time, hammer strength was kind of a new thing, and the complete line. And so for all the old school guys out there, it was everything, including the massive like leg press towers they used to have. It had everything. And
I felt like you could go to places like that, and as a female, you wouldn't be jammed on top of other people. You could kind of find your little private space. So I mean, I saw a lot of people who never went to the gym.
Oh, it was better than that.
Yeah.
For them, for females, that particularly, we actually had female only workout rooms. It was women only in these workout rooms. So, and they had, it was like a 1,500 square foot,
like Disneyland for working out.
So it was like this massive thing, a massive environment. So again, Bally had come in and taken all this over, and so what Bally was bringing with it was capital and infrastructure. And they had just done that previous year. So this is in 2000 when I go over there, and they just picked it up in 99, the end of 99. So I'm just coming into kind of, it's fresh. And so it's ripe for opportunity. And very quickly got into the role and started to do my thing. But going back to the operations manager role real quick, it wasn't just personal training. I was in charge of the front desk. I was in charge of janitorial. I was in charge of maintenance. So maintenance being like, if the pool breaks, you deal with the engineers that do that, or if the equipment breaks, you're dealing with that. Cleaning staff, so hospitality, group exercise, daycare, retail sales, the pro shops. So I was immediately thrust into like my P&L now. My P&L was not just, memberships, personal training revenue, massage or whatever. It had all kinds of stuff on it. And the employee, all of a sudden I had, I was not dealing with like 5 to 10 trainers. I was dealing with like 5 to 10 trainers plus an entire group exercise staff, plus an entire front desk staff, schedules, again, infrastructure, technology, which, believe it or not, when I went over there, we were still working on a DOS system, which I'd never even seen before at that point. The interwebs were just kind of coming around. So there was all of this newness in this. It was a big deal. It was a big deal for me. And so I realized really quickly that what I was getting paid was probably not equitable to the amount of work, but at the same time was a good living. My point being, I got a massive education in a very short period of time. And I really learned how to be an operator. I was very fortunate to be in a gym with a general manager that was the strongest operator in the market. It had been brought there from the Southern California market with the new area director for that reason, so that she was kind of the mentor to the other. And I still appreciate Connie to this day. She was a hard ass, and I appreciate that, but she took me under her wing and really showed me the ins and outs and how to manage and what to look out for and how to not get hit in the side of the head, which is, you've ticked all your boxes here, but what do you need to look out for? In the meantime, I was able to pursue the personal training thing even more. Very quickly got some clients, so I was making extra money. I had this bonus potential there. I was making good money doing that. And I learned how to work the system to work to my advantage, but I also learned how to be a leader. No better way than being thrust into it and having to figure out and make a lot of mistakes and fall down and do that stuff. So it was a really valuable time for me.
You thought you'd do it for 6 months. How'd that go?
So I learned that I really loved it. And I think the love for it was all the new experiences, and I was being successful, and I was being rewarded for that. Financially, I was being rewarded for that. At the time, Bally was doing things like having, they would do there was a thing called Elite Performers, and I was a performer. I wanted to win, so you put a challenge in front of me, put a contest in front of me, like a revenue contest or something like that. I'm gonna win, and when you won, they sent you to places like Mexico, the Bahamas, Las Vegas. Right, you're staying in 5-star resorts. It's all inclusive. You're getting taken care of. It's drinks, it's food, it's entertainment, it's concerts, it's all kinds of shit. It was awesome. We were balling. And I was like, this is rad. Not only that, I had a 401k, I had medical benefits, I had dental, I had vision, I had all this stuff. I was like, man, I've made it.
This is it.
I've arrived.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And again, this is 25.
I know, I was gonna say you're still under 30.
Yeah, I'm 25 years old. I'm doing it, right? I've arrived. Mom and Dad, look at me. I did it. I quit school and here I am, right? And so, so there was this, this kind of enlightenment of here's what business sort of really feels like. And yes, at that point now I'm in the big box kind of system. Yeah.
And so you stayed in, how long did you stay in Fresno?
So I was there until, interesting, it's kind of because there was a segue out of that, and that after that first, so I guess I was 25, till I was I think I was there for 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there 3 years. But that last year, so I was being really successful, and then the next thing I knew, I was kind of looking after some other clubs. Remember, there were 5 of them, so I all of a sudden kind of become a little bit of a mentor to some extent, and helping other managers or operations managers, particularly on the personal training side of things, because that was my jam, and was still my passion, and always was. And I was being pulled away from it a little bit, from actually training clients, because I was so busy doing this other stuff. So now I was able to I was able to coach other coaches, so to speak, and I really loved that idea, and I was being supported in doing it. So but I wasn't getting paid any extra for it. It was kind of like
passion.
And again, I was being recognized, but not financially rewarded. And so I had gone to the area director, a super smart guy. Again, they don't just hand markets to people. They handed this guy the market with the expectation that he's going to grow it, which he did. And I said, hey, man, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing here. I really appreciate the support, but I'd like to do more. Is there something more? But I don't want to be a general manager. You can have that, because general manager was essentially like putting out fires and managing the sales staff, because the big box business is still about new member acquisition, period, end of story, and that's where the focus is, and those were where the dollars were. They were certainly making more money than I was making, and they should have been, in terms of contribution. I definitely believe that what you contribute, the higher contributors should be the higher earners, but I didn't want to do that. So this guy saw some talent. He saw my passion for helping people, that I enjoyed doing it, and that I had a knack for it. And he said, well, hey, listen, we have this. And at that point, I should also say, I had been given all of this training along the way. So there were, the company had these different training programs they would bring in. So, for example, like if you had like the new retail products, and so Bally had their own branded nutrition products, sort of. They had that in. There was a huge company rollout. Well, they had, the best people in the company come to each market and then spend a day or two, or however many days it took to roll out the new products. Here's what they are. Here's everything you need to know. Here's how you sell them. Those kind of things. So there was this, again, infrastructure and support system for that. And one of the things they did in Bally's was the best in the business at this point was their sales training. Again, new member acquisition being the main focus. They literally had a 5-day, 8-hour-a-day sales training course. If you were going to get into the sales department, you'd have to go through. And they'd send what they called an area trainer out to the market, and they put all these fresh guys in there, anybody that needed a repeat, and they put them in there. And it was extensive. There was workbooks, there was like practical application, there was testing, there was video presentation at the time. Wow, this
is a major investment.
Oh, totally.
I mean, I don't even know big companies that do this kind of thing now.
I had no idea how good I had it, right? And again, I'm just enamored. I'm going, there's so much to learn out there, and I never would have learned this shit in school, right? So I'm validating, my own stuff.
Made the right choice.
Yeah, so I'm going, this is awesome. So I go to this area director at this one point, I go, is there something more I can do? And he goes, well, we don't really have an area trainer here to handle all these different things. And generally it's just the sales training, but he knew my background in fitness. He knew my background in nutrition. He knew my passion for helping people and rolling out programs. He'd watched me implement an entirely new structure that wasn't the company structure that I actually got slapped on the wrist for, and kind of how I was doing my assessments is they were different than the company, because I saw flaws and I was winning, and so nobody was telling me that, hey, stop winning. Just keep doing what you're doing, dude. You're riding all this revenue. But the point was, is he'd seen me do all these things, like, well, if I might be able to create a position for you where you're a trainer, but you kind of do it all. And I was like, well, how much does that pay? And so lo and behold, the next thing I know, I'm on an airplane to Chicago, which was the corporate headquarters. I spent 4 days out there with some of the brightest minds I'd ever been around, sitting around, a boardroom table with other people that they were training to do this that were way above my level. Again, I'm 25, 26 years old at this point, and these people have been in the business or in other businesses for a long time. And I'm getting it, like, if I thought the 5-day sales presentation or sales training was impressive, the shit that we were being exposed to was crazy. This was like next level C-suite type of stuff. And I'm 26 years old getting exposed to this. So I'm soaking it up. I go back. Then they send me to LA to work for a week with the guy that's down there, who's kind of like the West Coast regional dude who mentors all the other. So I'm getting this amazing opportunity, and I come back, and so I spend about a year doing that, and still mentoring and coaching. But this is a point now where I'm being paid a bit more salary, right? Because there's not as much accountability to a number anymore. And so now I'm getting a taste for, well, this feels pretty good. Like, I just need to make sure I'm doing a good job, and then follow up with the people that hold them accountable to doing that job. And I can see the reward on the other end, because the market is improving right? The market performance is improving, and I'm getting recognized for it. And I'm getting paid, and the stress level was a little different at that point, but I'd been removed from the fitness, so I was starting to feel a little bit disconnected at that point.
To the customer,
because this was internal customer facing, not external facing. So I got away from the fitness thing, but man, what an opportunity.
Yeah. So then when you pivoted to less customer, more business, I know you and I have talked before that you were on planes a lot. Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to Crunch, because what had happened is in 2001, and I might add, Bally's was killing it.
Yeah.
And so to set this up, 24-hour was going like a wildfire through California and through the rest of the country, particularly. And Bally at that point had kind of had a stronghold in the big box thing. And so they had all these gyms, and while 24-hour was out building these brand new facilities that we can compete with. Bally's had been around since 1962.
Yeah, they had a little bit older facilities.
Older to say the least. I mean, we had acquisition of George Brown facilities, and they were kind of old and tired at that point, but some of these facilities were 30 years old and falling apart and just not up to date, and they just couldn't catch up with how they were doing things. So their play was, well, we have this capital and we can get some funding. We're going to go out and acquisition all these other clubs in these other markets. So just like they had done George Brown, they were starting to acquisition other companies. And there was a lot of that, and that meant more opportunity for everybody, particularly me. But one of the companies they acquisition was Crunch. Mm-hmm. And when they did that, part of that play was, well, they got this personal training thing that's just far and above what everybody else is doing from a revenue perspective. They didn't really know how they were doing it, but they knew that they were writing a lot of dough. Yeah. And so what had happened is they purchased Crunch, and when they brought on Crunch, they got some of the executive staff and some of the people that have been running that whole thing, including the vice president of the company and his fitness people. And the next thing I know, I'm being asked to go down to the regional office, which is in Southern California. Yeah,
was Crunch predominantly in Southern California?
It was on the East Coast. It actually started in New York.
Oh, okay.
But they had clubs in California, one of which was in Hollywood, right on Sunset.
If anyone's seen, do you remember Night at the Roxbury?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, that's literally
Crunch. That's Crunch. That was Crescent Heights and Sunset Boulevard.
Like Will Ferrell working out. Yeah. That was it.
That's some here in San Francisco, up north here, and so and there was one in Laguna Beach, and so there weren't a lot of clubs. I want to say there was less than 50 clubs. Okay. They were in Atlanta, and there were a few other places, but sort of some of the bigger metropolitan areas. There's a couple in Chicago. But they brought in this team, and so I'd been asked to go down because they were going to roll out this new personal training structure. Yeah. And so
they were going to adapt to what Crunch had kind of
they knew doing. They needed to, right? And so at this point, again, I was the area trainer. And there was a guy at this point who was the new operations supervisor. This is the guy who was my previous boss had left. I wasn't reporting to him anymore, and a new guy had stepped in. And I'd been asked to go down and say, hey, can you go down and be part of this, because we're going to have to bring this back and roll it out. So I went down there and I sat in the room. So the next thing I know, I'm sitting in the room with all the people from kind of a third of the United States. So Bally at the time had grown to almost 500 clubs. It's massive. They had over 4 million members. This is a massive deal that I was a part of. So, when you did a regional meeting, it was no joke. I mean, so everybody flies in, they book hotels, there's all this stuff. And so we're seeing this massive kind of boardroom, everybody sitting around the round table, and then people around that, and they're rolling out this structure. And these guys started to talk, and the tone, the attitude, and then the business sense from a personal training perspective that was coming out of their mouths and what they were presenting in front of us, I was like, this is what I was doing when I came to Bally and I got my wrist slapped for. And I kind of got out of fitness because it was starting to frustrate me a little bit. I want back in. And so to make the story kind of clear, what had happened was they divided the country up in kind of 4 zones, and the guy that we got was the smarter of the guys from a fitness perspective. I mean, one guy was an ex-con, ex-Marine, the other guy was an ex-Marine, and then the other cat was an ex-pro K1 fighter, if you know that. it's crazy. It's basically like kickboxing from the East Coast. They're all very talented in their own right. But these were guys that were sort of in their late 30s to 40s, and they were fit and they were raw. I mean, the F-bombs are being dropped. Nobody ever did that right at Valley. Like, we all had to walk around literally with polo shirts tucked in, no logos on your pants or, in your black pants. Everything was very name tags. Hair had to be above the collar. No facial hair, that kind of thing. These guys come in and they're just turning the world upside down. I'm like, yep. That's me.
Yeah.
I kind of been a rule breaker and been slapped on the wrist already. I want to be with these guys because they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So, and they were smart.
But they're smart. Yeah.
They're smart. And they knew personal training, they knew fitness, and they knew how to sell. And I went in. So I basically said, hey, I went back in. When I got back, I want to do this. And ultimately, they started to make personal training directors for areas. They started to separate out. It's not just an operations manager. You got operations, and then you have fitness. And so that was me and where I'd come from and what I want to get back into, and I ended up doing that. I was very successful at rolling out the program very, very quickly, boosted the things that we needed to do, was very influential from continuing program writing and helping onboard the new guys as they were coming in, even from Crunch. And then I was invited to come down to, I actually got to a point where I was like, look, my time here has expired. Like, I can't do any more at Valley in Fresno, right? I had 5 clubs at that point. We were the second most profitable market in the nation. Like, what else do I got to do? Now it's time to open my own business. I'm ready to leave. And I've learned it. I've done it. So I went and I was pretty much set to go. There was somebody there I was looking to maybe partner with a little bit and go do our own thing. Still didn't know what the heck I was doing. But it was a good decision to not do that. But I did call and put in my notice to Valley, and I said, it's time for me to go.
How many years? At
that point, it had been about 3 years. Okay. And they went, wait. They weren't expecting that. I said, hold on. And I'd been dealing with an regional operations supervisor who, I'm going to be honest with, we didn't get on too good. But the new fitness guy, so remember, now they're separating operations, but they're doing that at a company level now. So now she's starting to lose the fitness piece of it, which is, quite frankly, the fun piece. And they were giving it to this new guy, who's still a dear friend to this day. He's an Australian cat who's now coming in to basically take over her job. And, he's got the accent. He's got the look. Like, everybody likes this guy. Like, he's got the charm. Somehow I feel if I had his accent, I'd be at a different place in life or whatever. So he's coming in, and he certainly charmed the pants off me too, to be quite frank. I thought he was doing a really good job with what he was doing. And that was potentially, I was starting to report to him more than I was reporting to her. But there was a power play struggle happening there. And so I called up and I said, hey, it's time for me to go. I'm gonna put in my notice. And he goes, hold the fucking phone. What is going on here? Like, we need this guy here. Like, he's doing a great job. What do we have to do? So he comes up and he says, and he has to bring this lady along with him, this operations supervisor, and they sit down in the office and they make me an offer and they say, we want you to be a regional. We want you to come down to LA or a area director down there. And instead of 5 clubs, you'll have 14 clubs or whatever it was. And it means a transfer, and we'll pay for your moving expenses and whatever else. And that was the next move. Packed up, moved to LA.
That was it.
Well, it was kind of the start of a whole nother journey.
Yeah. You went from 5 clubs to 14.
But as soon as I got there,
and in a new city,
there was a leadership change at the top. And when the leadership changed at the top, there was a restructure.
Yeah.
So we just kind of rolled out all this stuff, and personal training was being wildly successful, and they were trying to figure out some things, but and how they were going to run the business. The WorldComs and the Enrons that happened back in 2001, 2002. SEC comes to Valley, who's publicly traded at the time, and says, hey, listen, you can't report your earnings like the way you're doing it anymore. They're like, oh shit. Like, what does that mean? Well, essentially, without going into the detail, the books were cooked, right? And they were for a lot of companies in a lot of ways, but they were playing by the rules that had been established. But let's just be honest, those rules were they were not exactly kosher to the reality of what was really going on financially with the company. And as a result, and by the way, I'll add, when I had stock options with the company, it was one of the things I got. And when I got in, it was like a $32 stock, and I think it went up to like $36, or whatever, which is, at the time, it's really great. Yeah. The WorldCom and Enron happens, and SEC again comes in and says, you got to change your stuff here and the way you're reporting. And then immediately all the bad debt is exposed. And there was a lot of it, a lot of bad debt. So you bring on a new member and you say you've earned this much income. But at the time, Bally's is selling a membership. Yeah. That then included membership dues on a monthly basis. So the membership fee was $3,600.
People paid $3,600.
You're buying a $1,200 to $3,600 depending on what membership you buy. You're buying a 3-year. You have to pay for a membership, right? So it's like a country club, right? Where you pay for a membership fee, right, to earn your membership, and then every month you pay monthly dues. But once you've covered your fee, your membership fee, then you're just paying the monthly dues. Okay. Right. Well, the reality of that shit was people were falling off in 30 to 60 days. Yeah. Right. But they were still counting that revenue or that member, right, as if they had collected it. Yeah. So in reality, they've only collected a few payments, and they're still collecting dues because this person is gone, and they're chasing them down. We had a whole collections, company, almost a whole nother company that was working for us at the time. But the point was, things needed to change, and so there was a leadership change at the top, which meant a restructure of the company, which meant my position got eliminated.
How refreshing for you.
I just moved.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We literally weren't even in the house yet, right? We hadn't even moved into this condo, which was on the beach, right? We had moved. At this point, I've got a 2-year-old, right? We just packed up and moved our whole life. We bought a house when we had been in Fresno. We'd done really well with it. I'd leased it or rented it out and all this other stuff. Like, what the fuck is going on? And a new kind of reality sets in. Like, you don't own this stuff, dude. Like, they make a decision, you're going to be impacted by it. But the point of that, I guess what happened and ended up happening was, and again, this is where hard work, perseverance, making sure you're doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing, building relationships, not looking a gift horse in the mouth, those kinds of things. There was a regional vice president who really liked this new senior fitness director that I'd been working with, who really liked me, and I was able to build this relationship. So even though my position had been eliminated, and all the people that I had gone down there with, which by the way were bitter when I got there, because they're like, why is this guy coming into our market?
He's just about to quit.
Yeah. And I just wasn't part of that team. Like, I was the outsider coming in. So I was kind of dealing with that. I just was like, well, I'm just going to do my thing and get through this. The end result was my boss had gone to the senior vice president and said, look, this company expects me to do all these things. We're going to lose good people. And the reality of it is we're not going to meet the expectation with just me doing this job. We need some people. The senior vice president kept me whole. He created a position for me. So an area director had created one for me before, and now this guy had created one for me then, and he'd saved me from this cut and allowed me to stay in the fitness game, which meant I didn't get paid anymore. In fact, I got paid a little bit less, right? Because my bonus potential now was not going to be met, right? Like, there wasn't meeting that revenue number wasn't going to happen, right? And so anyways, I was making a little less money, but I was still making salary, and I was still making more than I was, and I could get through this thing. But now I had to take on, now it wasn't 14 clubs, now it's 50. And you're stretched from, say, like...
This is when the plane flight started.
Not quite. It did to a certain extent, but like the whole region sort of consisted of, Utah, Arizona, all of California, which had tons of clubs in it, Oregon, Washington. And so I was kind of left with Southern California. Oh. And Southern California is massive.
Huge.
Right? It's massive. I mean, that went all the way out to like Riverside, San Bernardino County, to the beach cities in Redondo, Hermosa, up to the San Gabriel Valley, Simi Valley, and all the way down to San Diego. Yeah. So all of a sudden, that's what we're covering. So I probably should have been on a plane, but I was covering a lot of it by car. Yeah. And so the game had changed. And now it's like, well, now you need to learn how to manage not a few units, but now you need to learn how to become a true multi-unit manager at a really large level and do it with less resources and less support. And you got to figure this shit out.
And the clients are gone.
Yeah. So now there's no clients, but your clients are now your coaches who are left in a really tough spot, or your gym fitness managers and the general managers that needed your support and the area directors that needed your support. And so those become sort of your clients to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And you get on your horse and you do it.
How long was the Bally's journey in total?
Yeah, so that lasted a while, and then ended up you sort of alluded to the airplanes and stuff. We pulled out of that thing. We came through it. Yeah. And when we came out the other side, I had a lot of experience and built a lot of relationships, and there was another leadership change. That meant they knew they wanted to put a little bit more focus into the personal training and build it back, because they damaged it with what they'd done. And what they didn't realize was it was a cash cow, this personal training thing that we were doing. It was holding up, the company to a certain extent from a cash perspective, because memberships were falling off. There was competition. There was all kinds of things going on. And so they were building a team out of Chicago to run the entire country. I got the call. And next thing I knew, I was standing alongside my buddy from the Western region, and another guy from the eastern part of the state country, and then a guy from the central region. There were four of us. And next thing we knew, we were
Were you aware that things were changing though? That things were changing frequently?
I was aware of, from the politics and, again, trying to stay close to the company. I was starting to learn how to manage the company a little bit versus being managed. And I started to kind of see these things start to happen. And you start to be strategic and making sure you're making yourself valuable and putting yourself in the right position. And again, I think hard work, relationship building, doing the right thing, not bitching and moaning about it, just getting it done, and suffering a little bit, put me in a position to then get to the next level. And so the next thing I know, I'm a national director. And that's when the planes and trains started. And now it's planes and trains and automobiles, and you're flying all over the country. And I had, everything from Texas over to Florida up through Georgia and North Carolina. And so now I'm living in San Jose. What I forgot to tell you was I'd come back to San Jose, and I was up here in the Northern California region a while just prior to this sort of promotion. And so I'd moved the family up. So now we're here. Mm-hmm. And the wife at the time has started her career, and my kids getting older and things like that. And then all of a sudden I'm called to do this bigger thing. And it was a huge financial come up. And it was a huge career opportunity, and I took it. And, then we're, now it's not 50 clubs, now it's like 150 clubs. And, it's at a much larger level. You're sitting in boardrooms, and you're dealing with company executives, and you're making big decisions about structure and program and business development. And it was awesome. We were having a really good time. We were traveling to some really great places. I mean, those are some of the places I went to, but we got to go to all the major metropolitan cities. I got to go see and do and train and work with some people that were amazing, and some that weren't so amazing, but interesting, and so forth. And
this is like the early to mid 2000s.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is mid 2000s at this point. And then there was another leadership change. Yeah. And then I found myself again fighting for a job.
This is exhausting.
It was exhausting. And at this point, I knew I was being exhausted. But, then I put so much time and effort into it, and I learned so much along the way. I wasn't really ready to give it up. I built so many relationships and had so many cool things going on. I wasn't really ready to let go. I didn't know how to let go. I never,
Now this is you.
Yeah, I don't know how to not do this. Yeah. So what do I do? And I was up for the challenge. And what I didn't realize at the time was the way it was sold to us, and this is the entire company leadership at the time, from the top down, and I was down a couple steps, was, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to rescue this thing and kind of put the pieces back together, but it's going to be tough, and we're going to have to make some cuts. But we're going to do it, and we're going to come out the other side okay. What it really meant was we're prepping for a bankruptcy. Oh. We have no intention of doing anything but selling all of this off. But we're going to hold you accountable to holding it together long enough for us to get to the banks, get through the bankruptcy period, and and help them understand. And so, filing bankruptcy doesn't mean you just go in and sign papers and say it's done, right?
It's like a boat with a bunch of holes. You just got to hold it.
Right, you hold it together, and then the banks will tell you, because you owe a bunch of money to, there was hedge funds that needed to be paid back and things like that. Like, they tell you what you need to do next and what you need to do next and what you need to do next. And what that meant at my level was, well, that means you need to go to this market and you need to shut it all down. So all those people that are your friends, you got to go fire them. And all the people that work for them, you got to tell them they don't have a job anymore. And when 2 months earlier, you were telling them, this is what we're going to do to come out the other side. These are the resources that you're going to be given and whatever else. And it was at that point, I was like, okay. But I can't do this anymore. And at that time, again, now I'm feeling really, really trapped. And this is 2008. Mm-hmm. So the market's just crashed. It's one of the worst financial periods in history. I own houses. I got a boat. I got automobiles.
A baby.
I got a kid. I got liability. I got a lifestyle that I've become accustomed to. I've got things that, I got bills that need to get paid. And I just took a 30% haircut overnight. Like, this is what's going to happen from a financial perspective. It was a scary, scary place. And during this time, my daughter's in 3rd grade. I come back after now traveling for the better part of a year and going through, it was a dark time for me, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and for the family, because of the things that I was going through, the things that was creating for us, that I'd let impact us. I felt partly responsible, for things that I couldn't control, and obviously for the things that I could. And the long story short, I come back after nearly a year of this stuff, and they have back to school night at school. You're a mom,
yeah,
right? It's one of the best times of the year. You get to go in and see, like, what did your kids do? Yeah, here's my art projects. Yeah. Here's my desk. Here's all the stuff on the wall. You can see the writing projects and all that stuff. And I walk in and I look around, and I missed a whole fucking year of my kid's life.
Yeah.
For what? Like, to take a 30% haircut, like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
And, but you can't just quit.
Yeah.
So I spent the next 6 or 8 months developing my exit strategy, which is essentially the business plan for Red Dot Fitness. Mm-hmm. And that kind of brings us to then. And I ultimately left and quit cold turkey, gave him a 30-day notice with a little bit of a savings account, a massive amount of liability. Because again, I didn't have anywhere else to go. I just know I couldn't stay there, and I went all in on myself.
Yeah, and in that moment, you were probably thinking, you could have walked away several times in the journey and done your own thing, but you didn't, and now you weren't going back.
No, there's just no way. Like, I needed to go all in, and I'd always wanted to open my own business, as I'd said, and I felt like at this point, like, there's no other choice for me. I can't work for somebody else again and be put in this situation again. Although there were offers and there were things that were out there, I was like, the fitness business is very incestuous. So what that meant is, if I jump back in bed with somebody else, I'm just working with the same people I was working with. And that last leadership change showed me that, because that they brought in a bunch of people from a competitive, the competitor company. And it wasn't that there was a leadership change. What I recognized in this leadership change was it wasn't good people. And I knew that. I had a really good sense for that. One of the things I was born with was a very, very sensitive sense of smell. And I could sniff bullshit from a million miles away. And I picked it up pretty quick in a pretty short period of time from some of the people I was all of a sudden reporting to. And then from there, it was like, you're a rotten person. You're not a good human. And that was something I had learned about early on in my life through a few other experiences. And I knew, like, this was something I needed to get away from. And it was very painful for a time trying to get away from it. But then I knew, like, I don't want to jump back into that. Like,
yeah,
I can't do it.
The machine.
Totally.
You got to break it and do your own. What? So we're in 2007? 8?
No, 2008. 2008, this is when this whole thing happens. I go through 2009. By the end of 2009, I know I'm done. 2010, I'm out at the end of February. Yeah. And Red Dot Fitness starts. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about Red Dot.
Yeah.
What does the Red Dot mean?
Yeah, so while I was down in Southern California and I was having a good time, I was heavy into multi-sport training, triathlon, adventure racing, things like that. And I got hooked up with a bunch of people that were passionate about it too, in a company that was doing some training, and they asked me to come out and help, sort of volunteer time, and which got me a nice little discount at the triathlon shop, and a little community of people to work with. And I used to go, we used to train with these guys, and there was this one particular guy who would come every weekend when we were out, and I guess I was a little too intense maybe for him, and he stopped me. He's like, Jesus Christ, man. He goes, every time I come here, I feel like I got a laser sight on my chest or my forehead, like you're trying to kill me. He goes, this is crazy business, and this is just a recreational guy looking to get into a thing. And it stuck. I was like, well, yeah, that's exactly, not that I'm trying to kill you, but if you're feeling that kind of focus or intensity from me, that is exactly what I'm trying to provide, because I'm really trying to help you here. Now, again, maybe I could have toned it down a little bit. I don't know. That was his impression. But I walked away from that thinking about that, and I go, this is not a bad thing. And this really does represent kind of how I handle things. So where did the red dot, I went red dot fitness, and that being, I want a client to be laser focused on whatever it is they're trying to accomplish at any given time. They're trying to accomplish it, and the reality of it is when you're in the gym, you're in a session with a coach. Your coach should be that way too. It should be all out laser focus for what it is we're trying to get done, whether it's the set, the rep, the particular movement pattern, right? The conversation, right? The moment you need to have a laser focus there, because we don't have very many moments, right? And there's so many things going on around us all the time. When you're focused on a goal, you got to be laser focused, otherwise you'll get distracted.
Yeah.
And so that goes for the coach too. So both clients and coaches, laser focused, red dot fitness, that's where it came from.
Yeah, I like it. When you decided that you were going to do your own thing, there's a lot of things you had to consider: where to do your own thing, what to do, how to do it, how to get clients. I mean, you had nothing at this point.
Yeah, I didn't. I had very little, but what I did have was I had about a year to think about it.
Okay.
And I had a lot of time on airplanes where I grabbed some journals and I just started writing down all my thoughts and my ideas that I'd been building up over years and years and years. And when I came out the other side, essentially it was a business plan and a series of journals. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew essentially how I needed to do it. I was pretty confident that I knew how to do it.
And what did you want to do?
Well, I wanted to build, like, if you walk into Red Dot Fitness today, you're standing in my journals.
Saw this.
You're standing in my journals.
Okay.
That was the vision. And it took me, what do they say? This got said the other day, you're after 10 years, you're an overnight success, kind of thing. And that's literally what it took to get to that point. And then another 10 years to build, Red Dot into what it is today. But it meant basically walking back onto the fitness floor and starting all over again, which is what I did. So I went and I rented space from somebody that actually previously worked for me. It was a dingy little, dark little room where it had no equipment and nothing in it. And had my first call, I just started calling everybody I knew. It wasn't like I had this business waiting for me on the outside. I literally was like, this is a test. Like, you're going to have to do this, man. You got to have to put your proverbial balls on the table, and can you do this? Yeah. So I did. So I called one person, and called two people, and two clients turned into 4, and 4 turned into 8, and 8 turned into 16.
It was a primary, just personal training.
That's all I did.
Yeah.
That's all I did, because it was what I knew how to do, and it's what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I knew there was people I wanted to work with and people I didn't want to work with. That's exactly how it started.
So it kind of grew with another person as well.
Yeah, so I did that for a little bit of time, and I recognized, like, I got to get out of here. If I want to legitimize this business, the next step is I got to have my name on a building. So I was looking into that. In the meantime, I was going back to the multi-sport stuff. I was doing a bunch of cycling and training and whatever, and I got hooked up with a group of people. And within that group of people was my now business partner. And, we'd talk shop and so forth on rides and things like. There's a few coaches in the group, and she'd kind of heard, and we'd talked about, what it would be like if you were going to have your own business, if you're going to do your own thing. And she knew that that's what I was doing. And then one day after a ride, she's like, hey, can we grab coffee and we talk shop a little bit more? I was like, yeah. So she comes up and she says, so here's what I'm thinking I need to do. And I want more financial independence, and I want to get out of the situation I'm in. And, and I know you're thinking and talking about this. I've been kind of secretive about leaving where I was. And so far, I wasn't super open about it at the time because I didn't know. And she said, would you be interested in maybe trying to do this thing together? And I go, well, it's interesting you're asking me that because I'm about to sign a lease on a building and I got room for one more if you want to hop on. And that's how it started. And that's where I met Cece, and that's how we got started. And we operated under the Red Dot Fitness label as independent contractors, and we both had our own clients in that business, but we operated essentially as partners. And then very shortly, about a year and a half later, we actually incorporated the business and made it official. We were just on the same wavelength and everything. It just made sense.
Yeah. And it was interesting because I feel like, that's when I became a client.
It was shortly thereafter where you came walking in the door, and I think it was like, hey, so I'm thinking about doing this, and I want my husband to do it too. And
I mean, you live in these areas and there's cute downtown areas, and you walk by studios and you question what they do in there. Yeah. And you were just so friendly and so welcoming, and it takes an intimidating space. But yeah, I think ultimately it's interesting because you have all kinds of clients. Cece has all kinds of clients. And I think that that's really interesting. And it was always something I wanted to talk more about was, how did these people find you?
Well, initially, there was no social media or anything then. We kind of Facebook was a thing, but there wasn't any of this other stuff. At least I didn't know about it. We had started Facebook. Somebody had told me to advise me, look, you got to have a Facebook, dude. And I was like, okay. But it was really grassroots. It was really like guerrilla marketing. It was getting out on the street and talking to people. And it was exactly what you just said. We opened a spot. It was on the street. It was in a neighborhood that I wanted to be in. You were exactly the type of client we wanted. And, a little bit of it was do the right thing, be friendly, be open, try to be out in the community, and people will come in. If you build it, they will come. Way different now. Yeah. But that's what happened. And so as a result, we got a lot of people from the neighborhood and the community. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to be small and very intimate and friendly and fun and build friendships and relationships again like I had before. And that's how it started. And it's always been that way. And there's a variety of people, and people generally I think you got that too. When you walked in, you were shocked at, wow, this is not the typical space. This is, there's... Well,
it's funny because, I had the intent of sharing this knowledge with my spouse because I wanted him, to get motivated. And then he shares it with his 3 buddies, right? And then they share it with their 5 friends. And ultimately, I ended up benefiting from it more than probably all of them, just because of Cece's knowledge around scoliosis and being able to help me with things that I thought no one could. So it's just such an interesting space, and I still don't compare it to a personal trainer because I think those other models still exist and keep people like me scared of that environment. And for this is like your fitness family. It really is to me. I don't know any other way to describe it. So it's just so interesting to see where you are now, right? So you were in this small.
Yeah, 600 square feet.
We worked out outside.
Yeah, we had to because we didn't have enough space. Yeah.
Yeah, and then. Couple years there though.
Yeah, we punched out a wall, and then we punched out another wall, so we got a little bit bigger. We had another little studio down the street we rescued. Remember? Yeah. We started our group training program there. Yeah, it was like a really organic process, and it happened exactly the way you just described. It was we had a client that told another client that told another client, and they brought in their friends, and it was just like you said, it was very organic, and we never wanted it to be I always kind of, after a while, I did shy away from the personal trainer kind of name. You'll hear us use the term coaches more often now because, personal trainer means different things to different people. But from our backgrounds and the amount of experience we'd had, and where Cece had come from, and her, in the sports medicine field and whatever, just allowed us to do and challenge one another in such a healthy way, but also challenge our clients and not be challenged by what walked through the door. And we knew it wasn't going to be for everybody. It wasn't glimmer and lights and loud music, and it wasn't a nightclub feel at all. It wasn't anything like that. I was past that. I worked in a nightclub. I didn't want to have anything to do with that anymore. And so, yeah, it was about welcoming in and not shying away and really being able to accept anybody that walked through the door. And we knew we were on to something, and we wanted to grow it. And it was clients like you and, like we have to this day that have helped us do that. We wouldn't be here without you guys.
Yeah, no. So then talk to me, because the big question I have is, how does Iron Sights and Red Dot, how do they? So
when you came in, it was probably 2012-ish, maybe 2011. It was right at the beginning. Yeah, right. So here we are now in 2021, and what's happened? So we've expanded. We moved our location. We rebranded at one point. You helped us with that, actually. Yeah. And we moved into this new space, and we knew we were ready to level up Red Dot Fitness. It was time to take it to the next level. And we'd moved from, we had some independent contractors working with us for a while, and it didn't work very well. And then we moved to employees, and that was how we knew we were going to build the brand. And that's what we want to do, build the brand and provide things at a much different level than what most places could provide or wanted to provide. And so when we got into doing that, it was a lot of work, and it's a lot of work. And any business owner will tell you, it's 24/7 all day long. And in that process, you start to not have the contacts or the relationships or have the social that you had, when it was really small. Sometimes I think back to that little 600 square foot spot, and I go, man, that would be so nice right now. I know. It was so simple. And as it gets more complex, that things can get complicated, and there's challenges, and there's all kinds of things you're working through. And what I miss is the relationship building and being connected to some of those people that were, and I still, I was trying to stay in touch with, but I've sort of lost touch with over the years. And I'm reflecting back on where I am today and where we are today as Red Dot and where our clients are today is because of all these experiences and all these people that we'd come across, and we'd shared their knowledge through us with somebody else. And I think it's almost a little selfish to keep that knowledge to yourself, and I wanted to share. So it's, I shared this at the beginning, it's a little bit of personal enrichment for me, but Iron Sights is really about, it's really about having a little bit larger voice. I am not a 15 to 30 second, pitch kind of guy when it comes to health and wellness. That is not how Red Dot Fitness got here, and it's not what we're going to do. Trying to provide value in that amount of time is really tough to do at the level we're trying to provide it. We don't sell widgets here. We don't sell one size fits all. And as it means, we really need to know people. And that means we need to be connected to them. They need to be connected to us. So what Iron Sights is about connecting with people and hopefully sort of exposing people to all the things that have made us successful and the things that Red Dot Fitness brings to the table, and use Iron Sights as a platform to connect with some of these amazing people out there that have helped us get where we want to go and take us further and take that person, whether it's somebody that's an advanced level fitness, expert, or a business owner, or somebody that's just, I'm not sure where to start and how to get this done for myself, but I know I want to take responsibility for my health. And I've tried so many things. I'm a little intimidated. I don't know what to do. Hopefully what we can do is give them some nuggets and give them some direction to taking that step, whether it's with us or somebody else. That's not the point. The point is to spread the good word, and to bring some truth to the matter, or to the table, and handle some of the topics that, unfortunately, you probably don't get handled in the right way, in our opinion, and certainly can't be done in a 15 to 30 second spot on Instagram or TikTok. So you're not going to see. Dance? You're not going to see me. People ask all the time, dude, we never see you on Instagram. What's up? I don't know. That's just not a place where I think I can deliver a lot of value. I think what you see imagery wise, what you see specifically with the things that we do there is trying to give people some insight to what we do. But if you really want to know, then you got to kind of, I think the podcast will bring to light what really goes beyond the photo or beyond the video that you see, and help people take or maybe go a little bit different direction or answer some questions for themselves.
Yeah. In the beginning, I was kind of curious on like, what do you expect to talk about, on all these sessions?
So much. I mean, we have such an awesome lineup of guests. I think people are going to be really surprised by, the level of talent, the level of people that we're able to get in here. And again, that's relationship building, and the things that they can bring to the table, and they already are. So we're super excited about that. They have their own experiences, their own things that they've done to win, in life and business and fitness and so forth. But I think there's a lot of topics we can handle, and we love going deep on those because we can. Mm-hmm. We like to, and they should be. Whether it's the physician or the physician that handles specific things, maybe, and we get into the COVID topic and what's going on with health and wellness there, and how can we be better, to the business owner who's developed a particular business that helps particular clients in a particular way. There's those types of things, but I think there's other topics we can get into. People want to know about nutrition and they're confused. People want to know about what's the right fitness program for me, and they're confused. People want to know about how do I operate or do this thing or be active in this way with this knee problem or this back problem. Those are things, but it's also, hey, how do I build a stronger relationship with fitness and not hate it? I don't want it to be a chore. What are the things that I can do there? I think the list goes on and on and on, and it'll evolve. And I'm anxious to see where it goes. It's a new journey.
Yeah, and every day, new topics, new, workout methods come up. I literally probably have hundreds of text messages where I've asked you see these people doing this?
Yeah, that's the best part.
You can get stretched now for $45 or something crazy. And I have kids, of course, now, and kids in fitness, it's like the Wild West. There's like no clear direction on what's appropriate. As a mom, I don't know what I'm doing. To stay healthy, there's literally an unlimited amount of conversations, but it's kind of refreshing to see that you're willing to tackle anything.
Yeah, it's not that the information isn't out there, right? It's how do you interpret it? And, just going back to my roots and remembering back to where I came from, I used to love when people would come to me with those questions, because I would generally take an interest in them and want to have that conversation, and it would challenge me to learn more. Like, if you ask me a question or we get into a topic that I'm not sure about, I'm going to find out about that. And I want to learn what there is to know. And I want to talk to really fucking smart people that know and research the things so that we can bring that information forward. And I love having those conversations. There's no conversation too big. I'll humble myself in front of these people to understand, how is it that we can learn more? How is it that we get that information out there? And do it in a way that people can digest it
and not have it be clickbait or confusing or scary.
So sick of that shit.
Yeah.
It just drives me crazy. I'm really disappointed in the fitness industry, health and fitness industry right now. And I have been for a long time. That could be why you don't see me very much part of the reason you don't see me very much on Instagram is that I just don't want to contribute to the problem. I want to be part of the solution. And I believe that we are and can be. And I think this medium is a way for us to maybe contribute, right? Not be the solution, but contribute to the solution instead of being part of the problem. I'm pissed we didn't have a bigger voice as an industry in this space with regard to everything that's been going on in COVID. We were almost villainized in a sense. Like we're the problem, there was times where, it was like, well, the numbers are up, shut down the gyms. Fuck, we're shut down. We're already shut down. What do you mean shut us down? We haven't been open. How are we? Well, how about what is it that we can be doing to help contribute to the information out there about how people can stay healthy or get healthy?
Absolutely.
I'm not saying I'm a doctor. I'm not talking about vaccines. I'm not talking about how to, wear a mask or avoid COVID. I'm talking about how to reduce, the impact if you do contract the virus, because the bottom line is you're probably gonna, right? We're all probably gonna have it at some point. Like, we're not gonna stop this thing. It's gonna do what it's gonna do. So how do you put yourself in a position to, not burden the system, to not be a liability, to not scare your family because you're not fit, you're not well, you haven't taken care of yourself. All of these things. All of these things. And these are the conversations, again, people come and say, hey, how do I do a better job with this? we've had so many of these conversations over the years, and I think now I'm ready to get sort of past my own insecurities of putting it out there and be bold and, you know, have them with people and share them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the talk today. I really do. I look forward to the future conversations. I feel like, you know, hearing your journey, and it further validates, you know, why I'm a client and why I'm going to listen and what matters to me. And I'm just really grateful to be here.
Well, I'm grateful for you coming down and spending time and taking interest in the whole thing. And I know we never really had that conversation before, but it was refreshing for me to kind of have it. And I hope I'm glad you got something out of it, and I hope somebody else does too. Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Iron Sights. If you enjoyed our conversation, you can support our mission by hitting the subscribe button, leaving a review, and sharing the podcast with a friend. I'll see you on the next episode.